I now would like to introduce Chanice Henry, Senior Editor, Group Editor from FT Longitude. As I said before, Chanice has been working with Iron Mountain on a research paper which I think will really bring to life in relation to what we are seeing out in the market and how other organisations are looking at AI and the challenges and overcoming them. So, Chanice.
Hi, great to be here today. Thanks for having me. So, as Tom just mentioned, I've been working with Iron Mountain on a research study over the last 6 months or so, basically looking into how organisations are getting their data ecosystems more AI ready, getting their data in better shape so that when they plug into AI models, they can have the trust to move with confidence forward with any decision making that they're using from the AI outputs. And we've kind of centred around this theme about making sure that AI is responsibly sourced, and that's kind of the crucial ingredient of moving forward with confidence. And to kind of start with why we looked into this subject area together, it's mainly because there's a lot of opportunity on the table when it comes to how companies are managing their information, but also through their systems and their strategies. And one of the key headlines that we found was that on average, the companies that we surveyed, they said that in terms of how they leverage their information with their strategies and systems, they managed to achieve a 1.9 billion uplift in their revenues in dollars, which is around 1.4 English pounds, just in terms of how they are utilising their information in their business models. So we wanted to look into this into more detail. We wanted to see about the realities of doing this, where the challenges are, where the opportunities are moving forward. I guess to start, I wanted to just give a bit of insight into the methodology, who we surveyed. So we had 500 business professionals that fed into our research. Mostly that was on the qual side. We had some quant insights, but then also we had some qual insights too. We had mostly C-suite and then C-1 in terms of those feeding in, so all senior decision makers. We had a good international coverage in terms of the regions, and then also sectors. We have natural fallout of a range of sectors. Thanks to all of those that fed into this research. I know that some of you are in the room today. And we also looked to create a bit of a sense of what good looks like. So we created a leader group. We had a question in our data that looked to basically rank the respondents on how effective they are with their information management systems and strategies on 5 different criteria. And then we looked at those that scored in the highest groups across all 5, and then looked at their behaviours. So what are they doing differently to the rest of the pack to basically inform the research that we looked to publish later on. So I just wanted to give you a tour through the headline findings. So we're seeing that information management systems and strategies are feeding through to business growth in a very real way, as I mentioned at the start. And then when we looked at our leaders and we said, okay, how are you planning to build on this? They were saying that AI readiness is key to their wider business objectives, not just in terms of data governance. But the reality is that we do see there's a lot of performance gaps, as we were just seeing in the previous presentation. There's a lot of ambition to get through those, that there are things that are holding back the AI readiness of businesses at large. One of those gaps is around tech debt, so unaddressed reworks from the integration of new tech platforms. That's blocking the implementation of AI models or AI platforms and initiatives in the future. And then we also wanted to kind of get some sort of metric on what the impact is in terms of data integrity flaws. And we saw that there is a big financial loss being had in the last year, so to speak, by organisations. And so they said that they lost around $389,000, which is just under 380,000 UK pounds, due to data integrity flaws in their systems. I'll go through kind of the more details around that. But it's not all bad. There are some wins being had around data integrity and also responsible sourcing of AI models and AI nutrition labels. So kind of details on what AI models are pulling from in terms of their sources, metadata and tagging to basically give insight on the kind of the reliability of the data is really helping a lot of organisations to move forward with confidence. So those are the headline findings. We're going to go through those in a bit more detail now. And we wanted to start off with kind of the state of play of information management and AI readiness. And then I'm going to move through to kind of the responsible sourcing side later on. Okay, so as we said, we saw that there's a real clear picture that information management is a big growth driver. So we saw that 9 in 10 business leaders, they said that their businesses had achieved some sort of profit uplift or revenue growth due to their information management systems and strategies. And we've got the green side is where we've seen the bigger jumps in growth, and then the red or grey sides are where there hasn't been growth as much or there has been a decrease. And we can see that, so with revenue and profit, for instance, we've got 49% that achieved a revenue increase of at least 10%, and 53% achieved a profit increase of at least 10%. And we're seeing here that data quality and integrity does have a ripple effect on performance. There are some that are saying that it has increased costs as well, so looking at operating costs and compliance costs. There are some that said they've managed to decrease those costs because of how they're using their information, which I thought was quite interesting to see. And then we wanted to give a bit of a geographic breakdown in terms of those revenue gains. So as I said, we saw 1.9 billion per company, and then we looked to kind of extrapolate that out globally. Our research team looked at third-party data to say what's a kind of reliable estimation of what this would look like across the globe. And then we've got also by region. One thing that I will note is that it's helpful to keep in mind that the sample here, we're looking at larger sized companies, so those with over 1,000 employees, and their revenue on an annual basis was between 1 billion and 99 billion. So that's also helpful looking at these figures. And also we're looking at the ROI here, not just of the systems, but also the strategies and the techniques that are being deployed too. So when you kind of think about the opportunities there, that feeds through to, you know, sharper sales techniques. It feeds through to, you know, maybe that's upselling, maybe that's looking at how you're acquiring new customers, and maybe looking at efficiencies too. Okay, so as I mentioned at the start, we saw that when we asked our leaders, where are you thinking that the most gains lie, they said that AI readiness is going to be key to how they move forward in terms of their competitive advantage. And so on this slide, we wanted to have a look at where the wins already being had. So here we've summarised the effectiveness of information management strategies in terms of what was self-reported by our respondents. And we do see that there are a lot of wins being had. So we've got here kind of a summary at the top of how many respondents said that they've got business benefits that they've achieved from their strategies in these areas. And AI readiness, we're seeing a lot of industry organisations say that they are achieving some form of business benefits, which is good to see. And then we've also got sort of data integrity and responsible sourcing there as well, following closely behind, and of course they're quite linked in together. When we looked at just the UK, we saw that for AI readiness, it was about 70% were saying that they had effective strategies in this area. So it's still the majority, but slightly behind the global average. And as I said, the leaders said that they're going to be kind of really indexing on their AI readiness moving forward. And in one of the qualitative discussions that I had with a member of the C-suite at an FS firm, I was saying what goes into making sure that you can get a competitive edge from your AI models in terms of how you're sourcing those AI models. And they were saying that a lot of that lies in having proprietary data sources, but also kind of bespoke filters and lenses that align with your business appetite or its approach to how it's delivering its services. And those kind of context-specific insights or filtering really make sure that when your employees make decisions based on those AI outputs, they're really aligned with how your business operates, maybe its risk appetite, and of course you need to make sure that that input data and those filters are accurate and responsibly sourced, otherwise it's going to lead to skewed decisions. So we looked at the flip side of the coin as well. We wanted to see who of those are struggling with performance gaps in their information management systems and also their strategies. And we did see that the majority of organisations say we can't get consistent benefits from our information management and the strategies and the systems that we're using. And that goes for AI readiness and data integrity, which were the strongest areas of performance in our research. And those gaps, when it comes to AI readiness, they can threaten the predictability or the confidence that you can have in your AI models. So they are something to be getting to the bottom of. And when we looked at where those gaps or blocks were coming up, technical debt was a big one, and so within legacy systems, those reworks that hadn't been addressed in previous implementation cycles, they're blocking the future implementation of AI projects. That was seen to be sort of around the same in the UK as well as that global stat. Also latency issues, so the ability to be able to integrate data sources fast enough for real-time decision making, that's a real hurdle. And also the introduction of new tech stacks, creating new data silos or issues with standardization protocols was becoming a real hurdle, blocking or performance gap really in blocking AI readiness. And then we wanted to kind of look into what was holding back kind of the AI readiness in general, not just kind of those specific pulse points within business journeys. And they came back to us and said that data quality, cybersecurity and compliance risks, they saw were their biggest threats to AI readiness. In the UK, they actually upweighted the threat of the cost of implementing AI across the organisation, which was fourth across the global base. So that was something I wanted to dive into a bit more in detail in our qualitative interviews. And it came up about the importance of there being coordination across the C-suite, especially when it comes to the allocation of resources, budget, so whether that's talent and kind of focus as well, that if there isn't clear consensus across the C-suite, then AI projects can be at risk of failing completely, not just facing delays. So there needs to be a collaborative kind of approach across the C-suite in terms of how your AI initiatives are being focused on from an agnostic lens, not just kind of a departmental lens. And then that will make sure that your initiatives get the right support to be able to achieve the full potential, otherwise you're going to have missed ROI. Okay, so we wanted to have a look at what the kind of the real financial consequences have been in terms of data integrity. And most organisations in our study have suffered financially because of flaws in their data integrity. We did see that data quality is one of the biggest challenges with being AI ready, as we saw in the final slide. And on average, it was around $389,000 lost last year due to flaws in data integrity. On the left-hand side, we have the more detail on the reasons why, so stretching all the way from bottlenecks to slower agility to opportunities left on the table around innovation and also kind of lost competitive advantage. And although that we've seen that there is progress being made, there's very real an opportunity here. If you're addressing your data quality and integrity, yes, in the long term it's going to make you more AI ready, but also it's going to be able to potentially be saving thousands of dollars or pounds here. So it's about persevering with the wins that have been had, building on those lessons, especially looking at kind of being more AI ready in the future. So we wanted to look at, so we looked broadly there about information management and systems, then we wanted to look at, okay, how is that feeding through to responsibly sourcing your AI systems and what's being done today. So we looked at kind of the business as usual workflow checks and balances that are being used to kind of root out any impurities that could be threatening AI readiness in the long term. And we saw that redundant, obsolete and trivial data elimination, audits and also automated data extraction are the top tactics that are being used to verify data integrity and also accuracy with a view to become more AI ready. And these sorts of tactics are going to make sure that you're rooting out any inefficiencies or any impurities that could be sabotaging AI models. And it's also going to make sure that when decisions are being made, they're more those outputs you can trust to move with speed at those. And we looked at find out sort of what the most popular frequency was for the top tactic, ROT review. And it came out that monthly is the most popular kind of cadence used there. So I asked one of the experts, Iron Mountain, you know, does that sound about right? Is it too frequent? Is it not frequent enough? And so when it comes to managing obsolete data, so data that's, you know, outdated or no longer really of use or relevant, 30 days sounds about okay, as there's going to be sort of a minimal change in that time frame. But when it comes to redundant or trivial data, it could be beneficial to be eliminating and reviewing that on a more frequent basis from the perspective of reducing your attack surface area from a cybersecurity perspective. Because of course the more data you're hosting that actually isn't of value to your company, you've got a broader attack surface. So to minimise that could be a benefit from a security perspective. Okay. So we see as well that organisations are investing in having a clear line of sight. So this is around data lineage, so making sure that you've got a clear view on how the data's been processed, how it's been analysed through its data lifecycle, so from creation to erasure. And we see that leaders are more likely to be tracking that data lineage, but also explaining that in AI dashboards to their non-technical stakeholders. So when those stakeholders are, you know, managing that data or an AI output, they've got a clear explanation that's accessible to them about how that data lineage should be factored into the decision they're about to make. And we also see that they are sort of, they're constantly tracking that and they're making sure that there's those frequent assessments that the data is highly relevant and of a high quality. They use both automated and manual methods there as well. And as I mentioned at the start, we see that AI nutrition labels are a clear hallmark of high performers. They're using those to a stronger extent than the rest of the base. And again, it's all about ensuring there's that explainability, there's that transparency of the inputs going into AI models that are being used. Okay. So one of the final parts that we took a look at in the research was around unstructured data. So we kind of saw in the last session, you know, there's an incredibly rich set of data that lives in a lot of organisations, but a lot of it is dark data, it's undiscoverable, or it's a tangled web, it's hard to kind of lift out what's needed or of use. And so we wanted to see how organisations are tackling that, especially because unstructured data was one of the areas that organisations struggled to perform against in terms of effectiveness. And we did see, in terms of kind of the use of unstructured data, the UK was ahead of the global average in terms of effectiveness, which was good to see. So here we're looking at what tactics have been the most helpful for upgrading unstructured data. On the left-hand side, we've got the leaders, and then we've got the rest of the pack. And then for the leaders, we saw a clear consensus around the value of talent and expertise, skills that are very, very targeted towards what unstructured data needs. And with the rest of the pack, you know, we saw upskilling data literacy and getting to the bottom of bad data habits. It was, you know, in the top 5, but not as high as for the leaders, and they're looking to upgrade that moving forward, which is good to see. But one of the top trends that I'm going to go into in the penultimate slide coming up is around the fact that AI is helping organisations make their unstructured data sets in a better quality or in better shape. And that's in the form of QA and QC mechanisms to kind of make sure they're cleansing or structuring their data in a logical way to be able for it to be discoverable. So here we wanted to have a look at the road ahead. So we asked the organisations, what's your main intention for your unstructured data? And they came back and said, we want our unstructured data to be strengthened so that it can inform AI decision-making and agility, and also be more predictive. We then asked them, okay, how are you planning to reach that? And the majority say that they're using AI, QA and QC mechanisms. So we do see this clear consensus of going full circle. So AI is helping organisations make their unstructured data more AI ready. And again, like I said, the necessity of skills and expertise is very at the heart of this, keeping humans in the loop with those AI mechanisms. Okay, so just to wrap up, so as was mentioned before the session, we've got the full research paper and kind of spin-off content as well that's available online, which goes into more detail into how organisations are kind of practically making their information management systems and strategies stronger so that they can use AI responsibly. But I thought it would be helpful for me to finish up on how the leaders are set apart from the rest of the pack, the main key trends that we found. And we saw, first of all, that leaders are more likely to be using automated guardrails to reduce human error. Again, very important to have humans at the centre of this, humans in the loop. But they're more likely to be using automation for compliance checks, and they're also more likely to be using, as I said, automated explanations of data lineage to their non-technical stakeholders, and also with their unstructured data, more likely to be using those AI, QC and QA mechanisms, which is going to be very valuable for speeding up locating where the valuable insights sit, and making sure that they're able to locate where things should be more locked down or more freed up to certain employees. They're also bringing their employees in on the journey on bringing dark data to light. So as we said, it's a real leadership characteristic to be bringing in your workforce to help to make sure that your unstructured data sets are more AI ready. And they're also a bit more committed with persevering with system fragmentation reworks, so making sure they've got modernization plans, system unification plans to get to the bottom of data silos that are really blocking that line of sight for AI models, but also getting to the bottom of that tech debt that I mentioned, making sure that it's not blocking their journey forward. And then finally, we also see a stronger dedication to enhancing workflow security mechanisms. So we saw that quite prominently within our leader base, and that was around kind of the data encryption and security mechanisms within workflows. Incredibly important moving forward to make sure that innovation work around AI isn't opening up new vulnerabilities that could be exploited by bad actors moving forward. And that's kind of the main summation of the research that I wanted to share with you today. As I say, we've got the full research paper available, so do check that out if you haven't already. But hopefully some of that was useful, and I'll be around in the break if anybody has any questions.